Sullivan. You guys are amazing. Thank you. I feel so blessed to share the platform with you. And Aiden's here, so we're going to bless you after the service. So this month, we're continuing with the practice of being uncomfortable. And since we're still in that practice, I thought, well, we should talk about the experience of loss and grief, because that's kind of uncomfortable, isn't it? And the truth is, if you're alive, loss is inevitable, but so is something new. Life is constantly changing, and nothing ever stays the same. And so life is constantly calling for us to let go and to receive what is next, to breathe in and breathe out, to breathe in and breathe out, to receive, to let go, to receive, to let go. It's a constant process. There's always a beginning and there's always an end. And the older we get, the more losses seem to accumulate, right? For those of you who are a little older. And also, many of the losses that we experience are sort of gradual, and yet some are also shocking and sudden. I many years ago read Christopher Reeve's autobiography. He's the actor who played Superman and was in the accident and ended up in a wheelchair and paralyzed from the neck down. And he said he was sitting out on his deck one day in his wheelchair, and he was looking out at the woods in his property. And it dawned on him that he would never be able to go for a hike in those woods again, that he'd never be able to go for a walk. And he said, I do realize that as we age, that things are sort of taken away from us slowly. He said, but for me, it was taken away from me all at once, all of a sudden. I couldn't go in the woods. It was all of a sudden I couldn't hug my child. There were all these things that happened. And he faced his experience with such grace and with such love that he is forever going to be one of my favorites. So when we think of loss and the process of grief, we usually think about the death of a loved one. And although that is difficult, the truth is there are so many other kinds of losses that we experience on a weekly, yearly, daily basis almost. Children leaving home. As much as you love your kids and you want them to go out and do something in the world, when they do, it's like, where did you go? It's a loss. And, my son has been camping in Montana, and he called me the other day and he goes, Mom, I'm going to be in Seattle Saturday, so can I crash at your house? It's like, well, of course you can. And he goes, well, I won't arrive till late Saturday, and I'm leaving Sunday morning around 4:30. It's like, okay. So he got in early, had dinner with him, and it was just like, yay, Jordan's here. And then this morning it was like, oh no, Jordan's gone. So it's that constant flow, right? There's so many losses. There's loss of mobility, a job, a marriage. I mean, think of all the losses that there are that again, don't have anything to do with a physical death. I'd like to hear some of the losses, because I'm sure I didn't make a whole complete list. What are some of the losses that we experience just in life?
An election.
For those who didn't hear, she said an election. Okay. What? A job. And then he's on. Okay, we're going to get into that. All right. Mobility. Yes.
Familiar neighborhood.
A familiar neighborhood. What about your childhood or your youth? Like, what about losing the color of your hair? I mean, or your hair. Losing your hair. Memory. Losing memory. Words start to disappear. Say? The wilderness and the environment. So big losses that are happening in the world. We see it with the fires and the things that are happening. Flexibility. What is it? Sanity. I'm getting to that, Gary. Gary's pointing to the obvious. I'm like, yeah, I do have a lead into that. Memory. Friendships. Yeah, we lose friendships. Sometimes we part ways, whether it's through moving or just challenges that happen, right? Loss of sleep, says the mother. Says the mother with babies. Loss of trust. So just kind of sit with that and just feel all the different things. And the truth is that many times we don't stop to take the time to grieve or even acknowledge the many losses that we have. And the truth is they can have a cumulative effect, can't they? I was just reading a book about a guy, two of his best friends had died that he'd worked with forever. And of course, that's a big loss. And so he said he had all this cumulative loss, and it came to one day where he couldn't find his keys and he started crying and couldn't stop, or a button fell off his coat and that would trigger a thing. So that ever happened to you? Like, something happens and it has nothing to do with what is happening, but because there's this cumulative effect, it can trigger something. So it's really important in this practice of being uncomfortable is to embrace the changes and the loss and not go on as if nothing ever happened. So an example of this is my girlfriend's dad had a dog, a beagle, named Herman. And Herman lived, a good life, 12, 13 years, and Herman died. And of course, he was really upset, as you are. And then he got another beagle, and he named the beagle Herman. And then this Herman lived again for another 10 or 11 years, and Herman died. And guess what? He got another beagle, and he named it Herman. And it's like, does your dad ever have a different dog? No, he just keeps replacing Herman with Herman and Herman. And we may laugh, but we may do that in different ways, where it's like, okay, so this is happening, so I'm going to replace this, and I'm going to keep going. And in Unity, it's part of our New Thought movement, right? Where we want to get on to the next great thing, and we want to call in good. But again, it can affect us if we're not able to stop and move through these experiences that we have. So it is becoming more of a reality that we are moving, and that our beloved building is going to be torn down. So I just want to acknowledge that it might be stirring up feelings of grief in you, right? I mean, it is in me, and so I thought it would be important to review the 5 stages of grief, recognizing that we don't necessarily go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's over, or is there a time limit to it? And the first is denial. And denial is when we're faced with something, it's like it didn't happen, it's not going to happen, no way is it happening. And particularly like when we're dealing with death, is when someone dies, it's like it's almost a protection. It's almost a survival instinct so that we can absorb what's happening, so we have chance to absorb it slowly. So denial is a perfectly logical explanation or reasoning for experiencing that, because it helps us survive the loss. The second stage of grief is anger, right? And I remember when my cousin drowned when he was 18, and I got the phone call, and I had to go to my aunt's house because that's where the family was gathering. And I got so mad, I was so angry that he died, that I remember getting in the car, and I was scary. I was a road rage problem. And I remember I was purposely running stoplights. I was only 20 minutes away, but I was running stop signs because I actually wanted the police to stop me because I was looking for a fight. I wanted to fight with somebody because I was so angry. And on a grief website, this is what the wisdom is on anger in that stage. It said, at first, grief feels like being lost at sea, no connection to anything. And then you get angry at someone, maybe a person who didn't attend the funeral, maybe a person who isn't around, maybe a person who is different now that your loved one has died. Suddenly you have a structure, your anger toward them. The anger becomes a bridge over the open sea, a connection from you to them. So it serves a purpose. The anger serves a purpose. It's also an energy. Another stage is bargaining, right? If only I hadn't done this, then that wouldn't have happened. If only my cousin hadn't gone on that trip. If only someone would have listened to him. If only, if only, if only. And it's another game that we play in dealing with, in our process of grieving. Depression. Truthfully, depression is normal when we experience a loss. If we're not depressed, then, not that something's wrong with us, but it's like, hello. Depression is this feeling of emptiness and aloneness. And of course we experience that when we have a big loss. And then finally there's the process of acceptance, of moving into, yes, this happened. Yes, this is what is. I may not like it, but it is. So when I translate that into our building project and our building move, denial is, the thoughts are, we're not really moving. Maybe the deal will fall through. This has all been a mental exercise. We're not really moving. And I know for me, it kind of got a little more real this week at our staff meeting because Terry Loving said, okay, I'm in charge of the move out project and we need to start going through things and looking through and what needs to be released. And it was like, there's that part of me that says, well, no, but we're really not moving. So we're not going to do that. And then there's this stage of anger, right? Whose idea was this anyway? Why are we in this? Why did we step into this? They are making this happen. I wasn't a part of this decision. And the thing that can happen if we get too stuck in the anger stage is we start looking for people to blame or things to blame, right? And that puts us in a victim consciousness. And again, it's important to feel those feelings, but not to get stuck with them. Bargaining. If only we had known how bad the traffic and the parking was going to be down here, maybe we would have made a different decision. Or, you fill in the blanks about that. And then depression. I'm not going to that church anymore. The thought of that building not being there depresses me too much to even deal with it. So maybe I'll be back later. And then finally, acceptance. That yes, this is going to happen, and it's going to be something wonderful. I'm on the mail list for Olsen Kundig, who's our architect, and I'm very thrilled with them. And they're the ones who are designing the remodel on the Space Needle. And I just thought, how did that happen? How did we luck out that we got this amazing architecture firm that is doing some amazing work, not only in Seattle, but around the world? I think that, Marielle, I've missed that about you. You and your phone. How did we get so lucky that we have this amazing firm that is helping design this new facility? And then it's like, then I start moving into, wow, this is going to be something beautiful. This is going to be, because they don't make no junk, it's going to be amazing. So life moves on, life calls us forward, and our wise teachers tell us not to dwell in the past. A man named Spredemann said, if you're always looking at what you've lost, you'll never discover the treasure that lies just up ahead. And so it's faith that carries us through these times. Now, I've just kind of laid a groundwork for what is grief, what is loss. And I actually have asked Marla Durden to speak to you for a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, because she's our youth ed director, but she also has an amazing story to share with you about loss. So welcome, Marla Durden. Remember, hold it close.
Oh, it's on. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. Thank you for asking me, Reverend Karen. I am so happy to be here, and I shared a story at the staff meeting on Wednesday, and Reverend Karen asked me to share it with you. And that is, I lived here in Seattle for 16 years. I came here in 1989, fresh out of college, very happy. I had a wonderful life. I had a business. I lived in Madrona. Life was very good. And in 2003, my father passed away at age of 82, we were fine with that because he had lived a good life. And then 7 months later, my niece was killed in an auto accident. And a month later, my sister's husband died of a heart attack. Then a few months later, my brother went into renal failure from the stress. And eventually my mother got ill, and I was left with a decision to help my family or not. And I chose to leave to go help my family. And I'm glad that I did, because my mother was in and out of the hospital for a number of years and finally stabilized. And I was very happy that I was able to help her with that. My brother eventually passed away, and my sister, whose husband died, moved in with the family. Into my mother's home. And so we had years of illness and hospitalization and dealing with hospice, and then finally the death of my brother. During this time, I pretty much put my life on hold because I was here for my family, and dealing with so much loss and grief had taken its toll on me, and I really wanted to get back to Seattle, the place that felt like home for me, the place that I had found myself and really have come of age. And so my mother was starting to stabilize. She had good care. My other brother lived next door. It was time for me to come home. I was so excited. So I made my plans, and with the help of friends, packed 2 suitcases and came here and started making my way. I packed my household in the back of my godsister's garage for safekeeping. You probably know where this is going, right? So I came back to Seattle and started making my way and making plans, and decided last July, after being here a few months, that I would go back to Houston and go through everything that I owned and let go of everything except that which I held most precious. So my most precious belongings I kept, and everything else I put away. I was very happy and excited because now I was ready. I knew exactly what I had, and I was ready to begin my new life here in Seattle. That was the beginning of July. Well, as you probably know, on July 26th, 27th, 28th, we had Hurricane Harvey, and everything I owned was lost, along with many other people, as you know. I was in shock, and grief struck, as you can imagine. Not only had I come here with 2 suitcases, I'd made plans to make sure I could have everything that I needed to start my new life. All of the mementos, the photos of my mother and my father, the photos of my brother, the little gifts that were given to me as special times that held memories, those were the only things that I kept, and those were the things that I lost. And to say it was shocking would be an understatement. I did not get out of bed for a couple of weeks. And when I finally did, I started realizing I had nothing to lose. Like, wait a minute, I don't have anything to lose now. Literally. And then a door opened. I realized, wait a minute, I can do anything I want now. And so began truly my new life, very different than what I expected, but without having any belongings, without having anything to go back to or to worry about. I could truly choose something new and free. And so I decided to follow my heart's calling and do the things that I'd always wanted to do, like interplay, and vocal improv. These are things that have been on my list for years, and now I'm a singer, and now I'm an actor. And these are the gifts that came out of the loss. And so what I realized was that I can't receive with my hands full. And now my hands were empty. And so I could be open to possibility. So the lesson for me is that loss happens, but there's always something more. And I'm so excited because being here is a part of my new life and what I have been able to receive and the great gifts. And I say thank you to you, Reverend Karen, and thank you all to the beautiful staff and to the congregation for welcoming me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marla. When she told that story at the staff meeting, it was so inspiring, and I thought, there's no way I can do it justice. You have to tell that story. That whole idea that you're free to create a new dream, that you're free to create a new reality, that you're just free to, like she said, your hands are empty, and now you can really receive. And the truth is, we don't get to that place unless we're willing to let go and unless we're willing to step out in faith. Martin Luther King said, faith is taking the first step even when you can't see the whole staircase, right? It's the evidence of things not seen. It's the evidence of things within, but you don't see it yet manifested. You just know that it's there. So the truth is, if you're alive, loss is inevitable. But so is something new. A new adventure, a new life, a new building, a new way to worship. Because once we let go, we're free to dream. Should we take that in prayer? Let's do that. So I invite you just to turn your attention within for a moment. Wherever you are in this process of giving and receiving and letting go and holding on, I invite you to take a deep breath. And once again, this time as you inhale, imagine that you're inhaling all of your possessions, all of your losses, all of everything. Just inhale it. And now breathe out, just let it go and release. And we rest here with open hands. That we honor our feelings, that we honor where we are, but we also release, we let go, and we step into the new adventure, the new life, the new building. And for this awareness, and in the name and through the power of the living Spirit of truth, we say thank you and amen.